Hello, this is Camille Grant here at Mayfield for another one of our podcast series. Today, I'm just really pleased to have Todd James from the 8451 group to join us. Todd, you are the Chief Data and Technology Officer there at 8451. Tell us a little bit about even what 8451 is, plus a little bit of background on your role before we get started.
I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be able to talk to you. 8451, we're a retail data science organization. We're part of the Kroger company. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Kroger. And as I like to think about it, what we do is we help the Kroger company in terms of being able to run a media company that goes to market as Kroger Precision Marketing. We also have a insights business that helps CPGs and partners understand the path to purchase. We have a venture capital fund called Pro Rock Partner that invests in emerging food services businesses. And, we also are the advanced analytics arm of the parent company of Kroger. So when it comes to AI and advanced analytics across Kroger, we're tasked with driving a lot of those results across the organization.
Wow. So you've got your plate full with a lot of different opportunities there. I can see why data is at the center of your title as well. Now, you were at Fidelity before in sort of a similar data role as well. Is that sort of your background? Or
it's interesting. I have, throughout my career, moved between business leadership roles and technology leadership roles. So while I was at Fidelity, I held a variety of responsibilities from running business units to strategy organization to, where I left probably the tail end of my tenure there was really around building out data and advanced analytic capabilities for the workplace investing and healthcare businesses, setting up the global capabilities for that. Also, as I was leaving, I picked up personalization across the firm in addition to cross-enterprise AI. So had a real great opportunity working at Fidelity to do lots of different things, including help them build out the advanced analytics and AI journey that company's on.
Well, awesome background for today's conversation, really about the journey to an AI future. And I'm curious, with all that background and time you spent with data and analytics and responsibility at that level, how do you see the generative AI movement that seem to all be talking about right now as different, or do you?
No, I do see it as different. What I would say is a lot of the capabilities aren't necessarily new. They're things that we were doing, as far as at least in my career, going back about 7 years. I think the difference is what was very difficult to do and you're able to do on a very limited scale, at least from a usage point of view, has become a lot easier to implement. It's much more democratizable. And the capabilities are greatly expanded from some of the natural language solutions that we were working with several years ago. As I look at it, I think what's different, if you had to ask me the core of that, I think the democratization of AI is what that's unlocked. We put an incredible power in terms of prediction in the hands of more people in a way that they can interact with from a natural language perspective. And I think that's going to open up all kinds of opportunities to simplify and enhance customer experiences, make the lives of our associates easier in terms of truly unlocking them to do the aspects of their job that they really relish. So I do think there is a bit of a shift, and I think a lot of it has to do with accessibility.
Yeah, I love the concept of democratization because at some level, a lot of the early machine learning AI efforts were very technical and maybe to some extent a bit unreachable to the rest of the staff, so to speak, meaning people couldn't quite grasp how they can get their arms around and use the technology. So what are some of the early learnings in generative AI for you there at 8451 and at Kroger, and relative to perhaps your past experiences?
Yeah, I think some of the early learnings that we're seeing here is, first of all, if you talk to most people, I think the rate of change is, we become accustomed to seeing the time frames for new developments continue to compress. What we've seen over the last year, and even what we've seen with some of the recent announcements over the past couple of weeks, is that the acceleration of capabilities and the acceleration of benefits that you can get from this technology is at a rate that I think is unprecedented, and it appears to continue to accelerate. So how you think about your business, how you think about managing it, how you think about pushing it out, it's put a lot of pressure on existing structures. And, I think from my perspective, our goal has been, how do you shift from a world in which the majority of your analytics are developed, supported, and maintained within an analytics organization to one in which, the analytics organization is a part of a much bigger ecosystem in which businesses are using out-of-the-box capabilities with AI. Third-party vendors are coming in, and the capability is being deployed across a much broader ecosystem. So, I think that's learning one. The good news is you have solid processes in place and you have solid controls. Then you have a basis around which you can start to build out for democratization. I would rather imagine if you don't, that you're probably feeling rather exposed right now and figuring out if you have the processes in place, they do pour it out. I think
so got to have a process is kind of your key point. Got to be able to break down the steps to get there, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone earlier today within Kroger, and I was giving the example of, everywhere where we have a decision point being executed either by a person or through automation, or in the case of AI, through prediction. We always talk about what's the right control process and the right control framework. If it's in a manufacturing facility, you may have inline quality checks. If it's technology, we have deployment checks and monitoring around that. It's no different, I think, with AI, in that you need to embed your solutions within a quality, within a control framework. So that's, I think, making sure that where it's probably a little bit easier to manage when everything was coming out of an analytics organization, now you have to think at a different scale. So that was probably, that was one of the learnings. I think another big one for us was, engaging the business on the journey. To some extent, some of the exhilaration and excitement in media around generative AI has grabbed a lot of attention, and it's grabbed a lot of attention, not just for generative AI, but for how advanced analytics and how data can have an impact and transform the business in general. So there's been a real opportunity to have, I think, more discussions around the organization, and a lot of excitement, and be able to ride that to work on some of the change aspects and some of the education and awareness with business leaders that I think is very important for us to be able to have a true impact with data and analytics in an organization. Probably the third thing is build for scale. It's one thing to do point solutions. It's very hard with generative AI through these individual point solutions to really achieve a lot of value. But if you build a capability and you build it in a way that is beneficial on one decision point, and then another decision point, you can do that at scale. That's where you start to see some of the opportunity. And some of the solutions out there are inherently built to scale.
Built to scale, yeah.
But I think a lot of the use cases are go solve this problem here, go solve that problem there. And what you realize is we're talking about an issue of text summarization around a particular set of information that is used by a broad range. Make that available, and so you can tailor it to individual populations, and that's where you can start to see some real benefit.
Yeah, so those are three great learnings. I wonder if we can build off of that. This concept of buy versus build is often a technology decision that you as an IT leader have to make. And with generative AI, it feels like we're at the beginning of a whole new set of technologies. And does that put on your shoulders, Todd, a responsibility to really think about, what do I have to build and maintain and manage that? Or do I buy from our existing vendors? Or is there a trade-off you have to do both? Or how do you think of all that?
I think it's a little bit of a forcing function, just because of the speed and the pace. What I would say, I think the underlying fundamentals don't change, right? Like, we should be building things in-house that are truly proprietary and differentiate us on a competitive level, right? That's where I would prefer to put our assets and our professionals that are focused on building data and analytic product. What I'm seeing is, the platforms are really accelerating a lot of the capabilities that they're offering from a generative AI point of view. So as much as practical, especially around commoditized capabilities, we want to use those. We want to open them up. And, with our partners, we're having discussions with them around what's on their roadmap. There have been a few cases where we saw tremendous value to leveraging generative AI to help us better understand some of the underlying data to better equip people to answer questions. And in talking with our partners, we realized that was already on their roadmap. It's not necessarily competitively differentiating. So, we'll apply our resources in other areas. I think the third class of buy is, or partner, is there are certain cases where we are seeing unique emergent capabilities that maybe we don't possess the skill for, or that accelerate our journey quicker. So startups, other companies, ecosystem that sit outside that large platform provider. And I see them, less around commodity, but more, you've got a very unique capability on the outside that can accelerate an area where we want to drive value. And we're working with those companies and those organizations as well.
Yeah, I like the insight of really spending time perhaps with your existing vendors and understand where their roadmap's going. So before you start building it, make sure maybe they're already investing in it, right? So
it was one of these things. We're sitting around late one evening and we're having a discussion and we're looking at a roadmap and it kind of came up. Maybe we should talk to our vendors. Let's have a discussion before we get going.
Yeah.
And we have the discussion with our partners and I think, because of the pace with which they're moving, some things that we thought were pretty novel and new ideas, you realize are cases that just about every company wants. And they're, where we can take advantage of that. It's a little bit of a surprise how much of the world is on their roadmap.
Yeah.
But, certainly that has helped us, one, in that we're incorporating those capabilities as they build them, and two, it gives us the opportunity to put our resources on other tasks that go back to that where it can be competitively differentiated through something we build on our own.
Yeah, that's very pragmatic. All right, let's talk a little bit about sort of the gaps or issues you think you're going to have to address going forward. And of course, we talk a lot about the technology, but undoubtedly there's a lot more to it than just the technology. There's the people issue, that where does it insert into your existing environment? There's potentially some change management and all of that. Give me sort of a broader view from your view as leader of all of this. How do you think about the gaps and issues to address deployments?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I think you have to think to scale to really understand the gaps, right? If you for individual point solutions to use generative AI to go online and say, give me a recipe for a rustic Italian meal that is inspired by this part of the Italian coast. Anyone can do that. It makes it seem very easy, and you don't really see the gaps. And I think sometimes that sets people's expectations for how easy this will be. The real challenge, I think, becomes when you want to evolve it at scale in a way that can support your business. So a few things come, right? The tech stack starts to evolve, right? We went from a traditional tech stack that we'd become pretty accustomed to a data and analytics tech stack. Now we're having to figure out how do we want to incorporate in both market-based and proprietary LLMs to be able to fit into our architecture and the supporting set of capabilities around it, which a lot of are still being defined, right? It's new. We're seeing a lot of new capabilities coming both from the platforms and from the startup ecosystem. So, we're looking at what does that mean from a technology architecture, and a majority of companies, unless you're actually a tech services provider building these capabilities, are probably at a gap now because it's novel, it's new, it's something we've really been looking at over the last 12 to 18 months. The other gaps I think we have to look at is ways of working are changing, and one of the discussions that we've been having with the business, but I turned around, to the technology teams. How are these capabilities going to change the ways of working? And as a result, what are the skills and the competencies that we need to start building within our organization? How do we help our people along that journey? Where are we incorporating new tools? Where are we working with our teams to grow? And I think, bringing the people along the path, because it's not because people don't have the capability, but because it's a change.
Yeah.
You're looking at, you need coding, but you also need prompt engineering. To some extent now we have solutions where, we've deployed them with the business and we're working with people that are not technologists, but working with them around how do you leverage
Mm,
some of the generative AI capabilities that we provided? How do you write prompts? How do you
mm,
write good prompts? How do you evolve? How do you get the right information out? So it's really about raising some of the skills and knowledge and evolving, maybe not raising, more evolving
yeah.
skills and capabilities. And then I think the final area is that, and we talked about it, it's ensuring that this technology, like any manual or technical process, that you're building out the right control processes, right? And that you're building them in line in a way that is efficient, right? At the end of the day, the mindset needs to be less, I'm going to build a individual chair as a craftsman, as opposed to I need to build a factory that can produce, furniture at scale. The same thing is true here. I don't need a use case. I need a system that can support multiple use cases in a way that is efficient, effective, reliable, and
Mm.
responsible.
Yeah. I mean, you made 2 points there that I think are really interesting. One being sort of ahead of the transformation at a people level, meaning how will their jobs change and are you skilling them up for that? But also your prompt engineering thesis or point you made suggests that there's an expertise at the operator level that might not be technical, but at a business process level that's actually quite important to making all of this happen. So I think those are interesting insights that we perhaps overlook as we move to transition here. So my final question, Todd, really has to do with responsible AI as a thesis, and of course, it's a large topic. We all want to consider that what we're doing here is responsible. We have privacy and trust in mind. We think about bias of use of data, perhaps hallucination from a usage. How do you think of all of that, and what is the responsibility on your shoulders on this regard?
Well, I think a few things. One of which I would say is, no matter what industry you're in, I believe we're in the business of trust. So, I think part of that too, you need to make sure that you're thinking about responsibility, that you're thinking about how you're using this technology in the right way. What I would say too is, we want to be in an environment where we're bringing in and hiring people who can feel confident that,
Yep.
processes in place and that we're going to exhibit and sustain an ethic around the way in which we're doing work. So we put a lot of time and effort into kind of refreshing some of the practices that we had around responsible AI, and it's less around the substance, because and when I
Mm,
say refreshing,
mm,
to be able to allow them to port out to a broader organization. Back to
mm,
that concept of democratization. We've had practices in place within the analytic groups that we're using to port out to be able to allow people across broader Kroger to implement AI. And it really comes down to a few things. I think, as I look at this, we have a framework in place that is pretty focused on making sure that our AI is reliable
mhm.
and performant. It does what it's supposed to, that it's
Yep.
compliant with privacy. That goes back to trust,
Mhm.
that it's secure, that we're
Mm,
pulling in the right cybersecurity aspects, and we're doing it in a way that protects the data,
mm,
that's safe. We
mm.
want to make sure, we're in a business of food. We want to make sure that our algorithms are performing in a way that accounts for the safety of our associates, the safety of our customers, and the safety of society.
Yeah.
There needs to be accountability as we deploy those, which goes along with transparent, explainable.
Mm,
And then, I think the other key aspect that we look is really around fairness.
mm.
And if we look across those dimensions, they come together. I think at the end of the day, as we always say here, you know, when you're asked what you do at 8451, we make people's lives easier.
Nice.
And, when you talk to Kroger, we feed the human spirit.
Love it. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to be in an organization where, we want to have a positive impact on the world. We want to make sure that what we're doing from an analytic perspective reflects all of those values, all those ideals, both of the company, but also of the people that we attract to come work here who have similar standards and similar expectations. So,
Wow. Yeah. Pretty inspiring. I love your opening too, that you really begin with trust. I mean, you have to be trustworthy, right? But then all of these social impacts and broader impact to employees, of course, the community you serve. And I love the great Italian dinner that you included in there as well.
Yeah, it's a few more hours here till we can eat dinner, so I might have just made us hungry.
There you go. Well, Todd, thank you so much for being our special guest today. Todd James, the Chief Data and Technology Officer at 8451, broader Kroger responsibilities as well. Thank you so much for being a special guest for our CXO of the Future podcast series.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciated the opportunity. It was great speaking with you.